Hey, my name is Lore and you are listening to the Intimate Breath podcast. Here we share personal stories and have open conversations about lots of things related to intimacy and sexuality. And that extends way further than just in the bedroom. It's really living from a connection to your body, being in touch with your desires, with your aliveness, and creating more well-being in your life by all of that. So, welcome here. And today I am here with Reid Mihalko from reidaboutsex.com. In a moment you're going to hear what he's all about, but he's also a great friend and someone that makes me giggle and laugh. So this conversation is very flirty. But if you can listen beyond the giggles and the laughter, there's also a lot of value in this talk, and I hope that you get something out of it. If you do, please just leave a comment, rate this episode or this podcast on any app you are listening to, or send us a message and let us know what you liked about it. All of that can be a great help for both of us. And now have a great listen. This is a very detailed, beautiful close-up of your arm and your hair, your mouth, teeth, smiling mouth.
It's already starting. The flirting. All right, I'm just leaving the window like that. Screw it. You have to deal with it. Morning sunshine.
Yeah. And with the fluffy vulvas also in the background.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I love it.
Hi.
Hey, it has been such a long time that we spoke live. I'm still looking forward to the moment it's going to be in person also. Not only live, but also in person.
Yeah, that would be nice. Someday. I'm still trying to just get stuff handled here. But if I do come to Europe, I will try to make a trip to see you.
That would be wonderful. First of all, you already said the flirting has already started, and I learned from someone to check in about that.
Yeah. Yeah.
I would
Are
love
we flirting
to flirt
during this
with
podcast?
you. Yes? Yeah, can we do that?
This is a very flirty podcast. Excellent.
Very freeing. Yeah.
Where shall we begin flirting?
I don't know how to answer that question. I'm gonna go to the question that popped up right before you said that.
Sure.
How are you feeling today? And I'm being a bad interviewer. I'm gonna do two questions at once. How are you feeling today? And how would you introduce yourself today, this morning?
Oh, okay. Well, so I'm curious. I will answer both your questions if you answer mine. And if you don't answer it, I guess we have no podcast. Why did you want me on your podcast? Because I think podcasts, there are lots of different kinds out in the world, people that will interview anyone, and, and then ones that are very particular about who they interview. And so I'm always curious why people reach out to me. You and I know each other through other situations, but what was it about that you wanted to have me on your show? And then I'll answer your two questions.
Yeah. I feel very eager to answer with another question again. But I'm gonna just be a good girl and answer yours. Yeah, and this is something I would anyway have mentioned, so thank you for already inviting me to do this. We met I don't know exactly how many years ago at a module of the Embodied Intimacy training in Sweden. There was a very lovely meeting for me. I learned a lot in that meeting, in that week with you. And we have stayed in contact ever since. And I have been keeping on learning lots of things from you. And what I particularly appreciate about you is how openly promiscuous you are, and you call it slutty, in a very ethical way, in a very consensual way, in like you are teaching the things that I would like. I don't know where else I would have learned them, as someone that relates a lot, or like I identify a lot, like, oh well, how do I say? I recognize myself a lot in how you are, from what I can see from you. And you are looking at relating and at relating sexually in a very pragmatic way, and kind of have the frameworks to be slutty in a loving way, in a caring way, also towards myself, self-care around like, okay, how do I navigate this? So I have a choice where I fall in love and where not. I have a choice where I what I create with people, and I feel just incredibly inspired by that. And it started with you also asking like, hey, I feel very flirty with you. Are you like, is that okay for you? Can I flirt with you? And it's so incredibly liberating. You're bringing consent in such a juicy way, for me. So that's why I invited you here.
Aw, thank you. That your words mean a lot to me. Because for your listeners, so I'll start to answer your questions. So like professionally, I'm a sex and relationship educator is kind of what it says on my website. I'm a professional sex geek. I'm wearing a t-shirt that says sex geek on it. And like my business and my career does a couple of things at the same time. My mission is to help people, men and women, and people of all genders, not do to each other what I saw my mom and dad do to each other. And my mom and dad were very, very madly in love. My siblings and I grew up with them, making out in the kitchen. They were always cuddling on the couch. They would do things out in the garden together and be laughing and all these things. And so they were just madly in love. And their inability to talk about and work through their relationship upsets, like their communication skills or lack thereof, had them go from madly in love to in love and really mad at each other. And my mom would eventually start drinking to cope with her anger. And my father was that American man generation where it was, the woman I love is not happy. It must be because we don't have enough money. And so he became a workaholic, and it just never got any better except at the very end of their relationship before my mom passed away first, because they stayed together their whole lives. At the very end, it got just a little better because they stopped fighting, because they were so exhausted from fighting for 40 years. And they buried their anger, and things got a little bit better before my mom passed away first.
Yeah.
And that's not the advice I would give people to have better relationships, is to fight until you can't fight anymore. And then you'll stop fighting. So my life became about trying to figure out, like, how do you love people and not destroy them? And then as that was happening, as I was figuring out to find those tools, because I didn't know that I would turn into a sex and relationship educator later. I was just looking for these tools, like what was my mom and dad missing? Because I knew that love wasn't going to be enough to have a healthy relationship. And as I was searching for those tools and growing up, and I was a a bartender and an actor in New York City. I used to be a comic book artist. I went to art school. Like all these things happened. And then I just had all this relationship advice, and my friends were encouraging me to charge money for my advice because they're like, you have some really interesting ways of looking at the world. Because a lot of the traditional, at least American, relationship advice is very outdated now. Mm-hmm. And while I was searching for all those tools, I was also discovering who I was. And, I thought I was going to be a virgin and until I was married. And then I've discovered I'm a slut, like I'm a very, very big slut. And what does that even mean? Because in America, it's okay for men to be slutty. I think that's kind of okay in other parts of the world as well. But and then I fell in love with two women at the same time, which meant I must not be really in love with either one of them. All these things were happening. And then I'm realizing I'm not straight. I'm queer. I like sex with all kinds of people. And then I want to be in love with multiple people at the same time. So now I'm polyamorous, and all these pieces I discovered about myself were also pieces that there wasn't really good relationship advice, 30 years ago for how do you be a queer, polyamorous, slutty guy and leave the campsite better than you found it. Leave people happier that they met you than more angry at you. Mm-hmm. And how do you do that and be truthful and try to meet people for whom me being slutty and queer and poly made them happier. Mm-hmm. And that they weren't just trying to stay with me and be poly as well so that they wouldn't leave me. Yeah. And so that's kind of that's the long story of how all this happened. And then me being, I used to be a fat kid and I was very insecure, and I'm still insecure. I'm just very secure about how insecure I am. And am I good at sex? How do you become good at sex? I have a penis. I've never given a blowjob before. How do I give good blowjobs? I don't know. How do you know? No one's talking about if my blowjobs are good or not, and then, cunnilingus, where's the clit? All these things. And then threesomes, how do you have sex with two people at the same time? It's hard enough to have sex with one. All those things for me were mortifying and made me very anxious. But also, I'm such a geek and a nerd. I was like, wait a minute, there's a way to do this. We can figure this out. Let's use our geek powers. And so all of that coming full circle to when you and I met, it's about if I'm feeling playful, but I'm also, a cis white guy. And at the event that you and I are at, I was one of the co-teachers. When and how can I figure out, without disempowering you, is it okay for me to be playful and flirty with you? And there are exceptions to this rule, because there are times when you shouldn't flirt with people. But in certain settings, like an intimacy retreat, it might be appropriate to check in and be like, hey, I'm feeling really silly and playful around you. Can I be silly and playful with you? And will that be okay and not, make things weird because I just also happen to be a teacher? Mm-hmm. And then that's a whole conversation about, when do teachers get to be human? When do students get to be empowered in their choices? There's a lot of nuance to all of these things. And sometimes there isn't really an answer, and you just kind of try to do the best you can and check in with people. And sometimes you fuck it up and you got to clean up your messes too. So all of that.
Yeah.
And then your first question, which is, how am I doing? I'm doing great. It's good to see you. Thanks for having me on your podcast.
Yeah. Wow, you're so good in talking, and I love everything you're saying.
Thanks.
And yeah, the whole thing around, being a teacher and how to navigate connecting with who is at that point your participant could be something very interesting also to dive into if there's any time left at the end of this talk. Yeah. And something that I want to add to everything that you shared, but one of the things that for me also really matters a lot in having, like, hearing and reading your advice and your teachings is that you are relating the way you're relating and you have a partner for already quite some time. Was it 13 years now? Or
Allison Moon, who's a sex educator and author. And folks, if you're curious, I have to plug I call her my husband. She calls me her wife. We finally got married after like 13 years. We've been together almost 17 now.
17.
But she has a great book called Girl Sex 101. You can go find it at girlsex101.com. But yeah, we met at a queer film festival. I was there with my now ex-boyfriend. She thought I was gay. During some boring part of the film festival, I was like, hey, do you want to go make out? And she's like, yeah, but I'm a lesbian. And I'm like, yeah, like lesbians can make out with men and still be lesbians. And she's like, interesting point. But that was the beginning. That was the beginning of us eventually falling in love at Burning Man, because we were both part of a camp for queer women. Shout out to Camp Beaverton for Wayward Girls and the Strap-On-a-thon. But yeah, so that was a long time ago, and she knew I was a slut back then and fell in love with a slut and wanted to marry a slut, and that's what she got.
Oh. And for me, that is just very inspiring to like, and also reassuring somehow, because I want a long-term partner as well. And there, like, I am all the time seeking kind of like examples of that working out well. So that felt nice for me to add to your introduction of yourself. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you.
And back to the like asking consent for flirting. There's something in that for me, it feels so natural to enjoy the flirting in itself without going anywhere else, or kissing, making out without it needing to go anywhere else, and be it can be so specific where my yes is with certain people. And that's also not a given. That's like a lot of people would assume, oh, she's flirting with me, she probably wants to have sex with me, or making out, or so. I love just how intentional things become, kind of.
Yeah, it's so interesting too, because I mean, I will continue to reiterate, like, I'm speaking for American culture and how I was raised. So I don't, like, I've talked to lots of different people from all over the world. So I think I know a little bit about what it's like in other countries and cultures, but definitely in America, and definitely like being raised, as a man, the assumption is like, if a pretty girl, if any woman is flirting with me, she must like me. And the assumption is not, oh, you must just be in a playful mood and you just want to be playful, right? Yeah. Like, and it's so interesting, because when you start to deconstruct and look at culture more and how we're raised, then you start to be like, oh yeah, like, so if an 80-year-old woman is flirting with me, I don't automatically think she wants to get in my pants. Why is that? When a 5-year-old is being silly with me and has like a crush on the adult, I don't think it's sexual. Like there's all these things. So why is it, especially if I'm attracted to someone, then I think you must be, wanting to take it further. And then, like, just like you said, like applying that to kissing and types of affection, or just like rubbing somebody's feet at a workshop, just to be, because you like touch and you just want to touch somebody and be nice to them. Like, there's all these things that there's just these cultural assumptions. And until especially if you're in a position of privilege where you're not used to being the one that's being taken advantage of, or, and oppression is such a weird word now in the States. But like, if you're the top of the pyramid, the top of the food chain of privilege, there's all these things that you just don't see about society and culture that are happening. And for my friends who are women, or, queer, non-binary folks, my friends who are people of color who aren't white, like there's all these things that are just so obvious about culture that can be invisible to so many of us who are in other identities of or positions of privilege and power. And so once you start to crack that open, man, if you're listening, then all of a sudden you're like, oh, I should probably ask if it's okay to flirt with you. And then if I get a yes, great. And if I get a no, to be like, thank you for taking care of yourself.
Mm-hmm.
I won't flirt with you. I'm glad I asked. And for a lot of women, just to have that kind, considerate respect of honoring somebody's no, because I've done that with people and they're like, I've never had a man ask and never had a man take a no well. And then, in the beginning, when I started doing that, I was like, really? That's kind of fucked up. And then I was like, oh, wow, culture's really fucked up. Like, this is really fucked. So by making these little adjustments and being open, to ask, or if you forget to ask, to be like, oh shit, I'm so sorry, I didn't ask. I should probably have asked. Is it okay that we're flirting? I would rather have somebody be like, you don't have to ask. I was already flirting with you. I would rather be the one who over checks in, especially when I don't know you yet, which was like with you and I, we didn't know each other. So I just think I've gotten more better responses from over checking in, and then having people be like, Jesus, Reid, you check in a lot. Why don't you just like tone that down? Than assuming it's okay for me to do X, Y, and Z.
Yeah. I'm also aware that about being the one that is in a privileged position, that you have your own story there as well with the Me Too movement, right?
Yeah. There were some people in my community who came forward during Me Too to share some things I was doing in ways I could be doing better, but like behaviors of mine that were harming people. And so I stepped down from teaching for a year and did a restorative justice-based, transformative justice-based accountability process, which is very public in my small pond of, my career sphere. And if people want to find out more about that, they can go to readaboutsex.com/Reid accountability. I think that's the right hashtag or link, or you can go to bit.ly/Reid, REID accountability. That's a shorter link, less typing.
You can add it in the description.
Yeah. So like, and that's a whole other conversation that is now just starting to happen in certain parts of cultures in the mainstream around like, how do you show up to try to help make a situation better if there has been a mistake, and even just an honest mistake, like a learning curve mistake. Like somebody might be listening to the podcast being like, oh, wow, like I never thought about asking permission first before whatever, right? Like maybe you're a massage person, you love massage and you're just always massaging your friends and strangers' shoulders because, you can sense their tenseness and you just never thought to ask. And you're like, oh crap, like I should start asking. Like anytime we learn how to do something better, it means that the way we've been doing it might need to be cleaned up. And then if you apply that to sex and relationships and sexual exploration, and maybe you're somebody who's, going to play parties or doing like, psychedelics and sex at the same time or whatever, like it can be really daunting to look back and be like, oh, wow, there might be things I need to clean up because I wasn't really great at always checking in and always asking. And maybe I was making a lot of assumptions. And that's not just for people in positions of privilege, right? Like even for more marginalized people, you can still learn all these things because the assumption is that culture probably isn't giving us the best advice.
No, absolutely.
Or the most cutting edge advice. And what this also applies to is so many of us never grew up in cultures where we talked about how to clean up, how to show up for harm and how to do better.
Yeah.
And now that conversation is more alive in certain places, there's a lot of people who are struggling with how do you show up to do something that you were never taught how to do in the first place.
Totally. And that's such an important conversation. I remember being the one who was touching other people's shoulders and massaging and thinking like, oh, I'm giving here. And since Wheel of Consent, now I'm actually acknowledging like, hey, I'm touchy. I want to touch this person's shoulders for my pleasure. And it has been such a difference to also phrase it like that and say like, hey, I would love to touch you for my pleasure. Is that okay?
Yeah. Yeah. The Betty Martin's Wheel of Consent, man, that stuff's so good. It's so powerful and so helpful because also like so many of us were not, I don't know why my light went out. This is annoying. Hang on. There we go. For so many of us, we can only learn when somebody can teach us the thing. And so the Betty Martin just, bow down to Betty. We are not worthy, Betty. We are not worthy. The Wheel of Consent and the people who help promote the Wheel of Consent. The Wheel of Consent is so powerful because it helps people. So basically, if you're listening and you don't know what the Wheel of Consent is, Google it. Go check it out. But
come
the
off
Wheel
one
of
of
Consent,
my workshops. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Come to one of your workshops. But like the Wheel of Consent helps people see the thing that was missing or give it more shape and form and clarity so that you can understand how to apply that to you. And the thing being like, so you're by a lot of culture standards, like you're conventionally attractive, you're a woman, you're very playful and bubbly, like you're not walking around angry and mad at everybody. And so you touching somebody's shoulders without asking usually doesn't land on people like you're harming them or you're violating them. And so that can also be confusing for some people because they see you do a thing and no one's mad at you. Why is everybody mad at me when I do it?
Definitely.
And all of these pieces that are starting to become more visible, those can help us start to realize like, oh, I see what's happening now. And if you can stay curious and really want to learn, it might feel overwhelming at first because you're starting to see actually how complicated the world really is. But that kind of complexity you can start to get masterful with, just like driving a car. There's a lot of like when I learned how to drive a car, it was really hard. There are dials and pedals and mirrors, and I'm supposed to be reading signs. And am I the proper distance away from the car in front of me? And is there anyone in my dead spot, in my blind spot? Like what's going on? And now, all these years later, I'm zipping down the highway, wanting to text on my phone. And don't text and drive. Don't do that.
Yeah. Yeah. I love how you just gave the example of like, how I can get away with things because I'm a young woman that smiles often, which is also a privilege. Like I can do things that you wouldn't get away with.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And for people who are like, that's not fair. I'm like, well, the fucking world's not fair, everyone. Like, I can get away with all kinds of shit that you can't get away with because I'm a white guy.
Yeah.
And so like, it's starting to be like, oh, wait a minute. Oh, like the world is complicated, complex. People are in all different places of their growth. Some people have a lot of trauma from all kinds of fucked up shit that happened in their childhoods and in their adulthoods. And they haven't started working on their trauma yet. So they're not even aware of it. So like, there's all these things that if your goal is truly to be a better person and a better person to other people, then you should be drawn to learning and getting better at some of these contexts and these subjects. And if your goal is to just not be taking advantage of everybody, and you really want to leave, like I say, like, you know, leaving the campsite better than you found it. Especially for me, like I'll make it funny and playful. Like for me as somebody who's a slut, I want you to feel so safe with me and have such a wonderful experience that whether we sleep together or not, you are telling your friends, you need to meet this guy. Or be like, you need to fuck this guy. So like when I talk to men about, you know, like getting laid, I'm like, listen, like if the people you sleep with aren't sending their friends to you to sleep with, you're missing something, because you should be getting laid on recommendation. You should be so awesome and so kind and generous and thoughtful and considerate that the men or the women that you're sleeping with or the non-binary folks, like whomever you're fucking, should be like, holy shit, I cannot wait to tell my friends to come fuck you. And that's the way I make it silly. But I deal with the like, I get people's attention, especially when I'm talking to men, because they're like, do you mean that's possible? And I'm like, it's not only possible, it should be your goal to be that wonderful. And also, I'm not trying to turn everybody into a slut. I'm just using the cultural permission that men are supposed to be sowing their oats. Yeah. And I'll take advantage of that to try to help them learn. But like, there's also room, and we need, like, if you're monogamous, please be monogamous. Like, go date people who are monogamous. Like, it's out of integrity. Yeah. It's out of integrity for me to date monogamous people because I'm so not monogamous. Yeah. Why would I do that to you? If really what you want is monogamy, and monogamy is just as valid and just as enlightened a relationship choice as polyamory or being kinky and slutty or a swinger or whatever, like, if it once you, because the real message is like, figure out who you really are, which may or may not be easy for some folks, and then go date your species. Yeah. So my life got so much easier when I started sleeping with sluts, because sluts were never mad at me for how slutty I was. Whereas everybody else was always angry at me for wanting to have threesomes and moresomes and date everybody and sleep with everybody. So like, and this is kind of in my journey, this is where the idea of dating your species came from, because I was trying to figure out why everyone was so mad at me, because I was trying to be so wonderful and considerate and kind and check in. And part of the leaving the campsite better than you found it was sometimes the way you do that is not sleep with that person. Not date that person. Don't fall in love with that person, because the two of you aren't actually a good fit for the intentions that you're trying to fulfill on. And so, you know, like, monogamy is just as evolved a relationship style as non-monogamy. Just like jazz is just as valid a musical style as rock and roll or punk or, you know, whatever, reggae. Like, there's not a value judgment. It's really like, how does the music come through you? How does love and intimacy come through you? And then, are you starting a band with somebody who loves playing that same kind of music?
Yeah. I recently got to watch your like the whole workshop around that from you.
Mm-hmm. The Dating a Species workshop. Yeah.
Dating Your Species workshop. And
which people can find at readaboutsex.com/species.
and that will be also in the description. Yeah. It's I highly recommend it. I think I recognize myself a lot again and like getting to know myself years back and like, oh, okay, so now I'm in love with different, and what's wrong with my heart? Or like, is this real? It can't be real. And then, okay, I can also be attracted to different genders, or getting like all these pieces falling together little by little. And that being such a adventurous journey in this world and culture where also all the education is based on monogamy. Yeah, like it's a real search for like self-acceptance also. And then also how to do it in a good way, right?
Yeah.
Even just the safer sex, like looking at the school system, or like what I learned in school is not even taking into account that people are like serial monogamous people, like that there's like relationship after relationship. It's completely based on, okay, two people are going to meet and they're going to marry and that's it.
Yeah.
Like, and so I never learned that you could do an STD test at the doctor, or like, so I feel a little bit of frustration about the school system also.
Yeah.
But to come back to where I was, so that was a whole journey, and for me, something shifted again, like about 2 years ago, where my longing to build a family started to become bigger, and so suddenly all kinds of cultural values are like they're coming up again around. Okay, like how do you find or choose the father of your children? And suddenly this whole journey that I had been doing is kind of like casted away again. And so it was incredibly valuable to look at your workshop and be reminded of like, yeah, I need to be truthful about who am I, what species am I. And you say like it's caring for the other person, and it's also caring for me. Like I have been okay with being that person, the lover of someone that knows they're monogamous and they're like single for a while, but then as soon as they find someone, I'm casted away. Yeah. And I've been okay with that. And actually now I'm not at all anymore. I don't want to be that person, right? So it's both sides. It's taking care of myself and it's taking care of the other. But I'm still learning a lot there.
Yeah. Well, I mean, also like for me, as somebody who's never wanted children, and like when what you're sharing, I'm like, oh yeah, like that's such a great question. How do you pick the father of your children? Because so many people do it. Either it's very pragmatic, like I need somebody who has enough wealth. Like if I'm going to be the mom, I want a husband or a baby daddy who's got enough money to take care of us, so there's security there, right? And then a lot of other people, it's I'm so attracted to you that you're the one, and just having more of a kind of dating your species conversation approach about like, who do I want the father of my children? Like, what characteristics do I want? Like, what self-expression, and then it seems like it's impossible for you or somebody to be like, I want the father of my children to be okay with me fucking other people, falling in love with other people. And actually, I'd really prefer if they were monogamous, but totally happy that I'm the one getting laid by other people. Because it would be great if they were always home to take care of the kids while I'm off doing my thing, getting my freak on. And, oh yeah, I'd like them to have a job and, some money in the bank, and that they love financially providing for me. so that I have some money in the bank so that I can go fly to another country and bang so-and-so because I like banging so-and-so, and then they can take care of the kids. And then like the cultural messaging is like, that person does not exist. Mm-hmm. No man will be okay with that. And I'm just letting everybody know that that's not true. There are people out there, men and women, who are like, yeah, like, I want you to go have your freedom. And I really don't want to go have all these other relationships. Relationships are a lot of work. Mm-hmm. I just want you. And it makes me happy to know that you're being self-expressed out in the world, et cetera, et cetera. Mm-hmm. But like, those people exist, but you have to start figuring out, how am I going to find them? Where are those people out in the world? In the same way that there are people out in the world who are like, I want to have kids. I want to be monogamous, but I want to date somebody who, and I want the mother of my children to like be a role model, that our kids can be whatever they want in life. And I'm okay with them falling in love or having sex with other people. And, maybe they can include me every once in a while when I'm in the mood, but I don't really, it's a lot of work to find people to sleep with. It'd be great if my spouse or my partner actually was the one who would find people for us to sleep with, because then I could just read my books and raise my kids until they bring somebody lovely home. Like, oh, man, life is so hard. And like, so whatever you think isn't possible, maybe it's not. Maybe the person is out there, but you just never meet them. But wouldn't it at least be worthwhile to try to find somebody like that? Mm-hmm. And again, you might not. But also, would you, and this is the tricky question, and I don't know that I have the right answer for it. I have my answer. But I would, and it's different now too, because I have Allison. Like, it's not, and not just Allison, like I have lovers who have been in my life for 20 years and we still see each other a couple, once or twice a year, maybe. Or if it's every 3 years, we see each other and we're still lovers. So like, I have a very different experience of what's possible because I've been doing this long, and I found a handful of people. Mm-hmm. And most people aren't looking for 50 people. Maybe I am. I'm looking for 50, more than 50. But I've had 30 years of being like this to find, if I find one person a year that's slutty like me, that was a great year. And so over 30 years, I have, a handful of people who have been in my life for a long time. So back to my point. I think I would have been happier trying to find these people and never finding them than marrying my high school sweetheart and having a family when I didn't want kids in the first place. And so my question when I'm coaching people or when I'm teaching is, if you knew you were going to be alone, air quotes, like for you, I can ask this to you directly. Okay. And this is a tough question, and I don't know, there's no right answer. It's, if you made a go for it and looked for that person to be the father of your children, and you never find them, and you never have children, would you rather live your life surrounded by friends who love you, never having found your baby daddy, or pick whomever you've fallen in love with in the last 7 years, have babies with them, and never get to be yourself? And what's the best use of the rest of your life? And again, like, that's a very deep and complicated question to ask people. But I think thinking about it might bear some useful fruit.
Definitely. And it's a wonderful question, and it moves things inside of me. I've been hearing you ask the question before in a workshop also. And now I'm feeling into how much do I want to personally answer you.
Well, you don't have to. I think just this conversation, like, I don't know, maybe your listeners want the answer. But I also think it's okay to not have an answer yet. But it's a question because the other thing that starts to get really interesting or sticky is, for some people, they want to be a parent more than they want to have a husband or a wife. But you were taught, most of us, that the dream is you fall in love, you have babies, and you stay together forever. Now, a lot of people who've been married 2 or 3 times and had kids by, maybe many different people are like, yeah, that's not very realistic. Like, that's a fairy tale. What really happens is you fall in love, you have kids, you figure out if you want to stay together or not. Hopefully there's still a good parent, co-parent, and then you fall in love and maybe have another kid with somebody else. And now you have a blended family and you hope everyone's kind to each other and shows up for the kids. So there's a realistic question about, and I can ask this to you too, which you don't have to answer, is, do you really want to be a mother, or are you really looking for the father-mother team? Mm-hmm. And like, what is that really about?
And I do want to answer some things here.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah.
I just don't want you to feel on the spot.
You can put me on the spot.
No, these are big questions.
Yeah, they are. And it brings me back to the phrase that you use so often in this workshop as well. Like,
yeah, that we fall in love with good people who end up being horrible fits for us.
Exactly. And that is my experience, that I have been with like incredibly amazing, beautiful men that I want all my monogamous close friends to meet, because I really I can recommend them so like they're the best. It's just we don't want the same kind of relationship.
Yeah.
But even though they are so incredible, I have been breaking up, or have been choosing, sometimes after too long time, but I've been choosing for no, I want to self-express in a way that feels really true to me. So I guess that is some kind of answer, based on what I've been doing in the past, is an answer to that first question of what is most important for me.
Yeah.
And the second piece is, I have definitely been having the thought of for me, most important is that I find a co-parent with who I have a good relationship, however that expresses itself, and maybe that changes over the years. But that we're mainly we both want to have a baby. And this feels really like the most important creation that we have together. And then that added dream of ideally that's also my, my life partner. It's hard to say, right? How much this is cultural and how much it's not. And in all of this, I just feel so much appreciation for you being a role model and asking these questions.
Thank you. It always touches me when people share that these things are useful, because back to my insecurities, like I'm worried I'm trying to solve my problems and that my solutions aren't actually helpful for anyone but me. And that's my worry, because as a teacher, I'm trying to be thoughtful and make sure that my advice applies, because really good advice should apply to ideally all kinds of relationships. Like a healthy relationship, the things that make for a healthy relationship, those skills should be useful whether you want one relationship or 7. Like being a good parent, those skills should be useful whether you have 1 kid or 7. And yes, when you have multiple kids, there's different situations, but the core pieces should be useful and helpful and smart. And so I think these questions we've been talking about and the kind of like the dating your species approach, I think that's useful for everyone to kind of consider. Mm-hmm. And for some people, the culture you were raised in and the advice in your time period, in your era, mm-hmm. for that culture, because, you know, relationship advice has been kind of the same, but what's allowed or looked for in a culture changes over the years, like body types and this and that. Like the Renaissance, if you were thin, you were not healthy. You need to be curvy, like all these things. But like, so things shift from over time periods, but, you know, ideally what we're really looking for is what makes things healthy and allows us to feel good about our choices, mm-hmm. which culture removes a lot of choice from us. You know, you are supposed to be monogamous. You are not supposed to sleep with women. You're only supposed to sleep with men. You're only supposed to sleep with a man after you're married, only for procreation, you know, mm-hmm. And then you're supposed to be the devoted wife who stays home and raises the kids and just lets the man rule the house. Like, and this is more old American type thinking. Like culture gives bad advice, a lot of it really bad, mm-hmm. especially nowadays when you're supposed to be an empowered woman who has agency over her body, can do whatever she wants with her pussy, like all that, mm-hmm. the things that, you know, 100 years ago, you weren't allowed to own land, like shit like that. I mean, in Europe, it was a little different, but in America, like America's still fucked up. Let's just all agree. Everyone from all over the world. Wow, America. What the fuck? What a train wreck.
Yeah. And then I want to jump to another resource that you have.
Sure.
The casual sex. Well, or what is actually your time limit?
I don't have nothing to do. I'm just the guy with the laptop who's trying to get laid. I got nothing to do. Yeah, we can go longer. Thank you for checking in.
Yeah.
If you want. I mean, and you know, it's up to you. It's your podcast.
Could also do another episode. Are you willing to come a second time to my podcast?
Yes.
Yeah. Can you do a few more times that like sexy, lower, as if you're whispering voice, especially if you're talking to a man, apparently that comes up, but...
You mean my Batman voice?
Yeah.
Listen, guys, we're going to do another episode at least because we want to take time and consideration.
Exactly.
We want to do this right. Mm-hmm. You don't want to rush it like sex. Sometimes you have to rush it, but we don't have to rush it right now. So we're going to take our time. We're going to go slow. And we're going to make sure we cover everything.
Yeah. Yeah. It does something with me. Thank you for that. So I'm requesting more of that also in the next episode.
Okay. Let's talk about the casual sex protocol, shall we?
Yeah.
And Laura, I want to just say thank you. Like your attention, it means a lot to me. It just does, you know, because I liked how we met. I'm such a champion of your career and what you and how you help people. You know, there's probably for me some weird 5th grader, you know, 10 years old and the prettiest girl in class is talking to me kind of thing. Like all these things, right, that are going on. But all these facets of ourselves are going on all the time because we're human.
So multi-layered.
And yeah. And so many of us are, you know, we're trying to be grown-ups, but a lot of us are being ruled by our inner children and our wounded parts of us. And, you know, can we learn to love ourselves, all the parts of us, hopefully, even the wounded parts. And can we become the parents for ourselves that we were lacking growing up? And some of us grew up with amazing parents, but we still have to become our own adults to our inner children. And can we do that in ways that are really healthy for us and not so reactionary? And can we own it? So like, yeah, like my inner fifth grader has a huge crush on you. And my adult Reid has a huge crush on you. And I love what you do and who you are in the world. And I want you to find that small handful of men that will love you for being you and the one who you get to bear children with, and that because you're going to raise amazing fucking little kids and they're going to turn into amazing humans and adults, and it's going to make the world a better place. Like I want all of that for everyone who has those dreams that they feel like they don't deserve. Whether, and that includes the men and the women who are monogamous, who want to find somebody who'll never leave them. But it starts with you realizing how to never leave yourself, and I think a lot of what you do and your own journey is all about those pieces. So like if any of what came out of my brain is helpful for you, it makes me so happy, because like back again to like, I'm really trying to help people not do what my mom and dad did to each other. Because then that means your kids grow up in a family where you and the people that you love aren't destroying each other. Because I've experienced what happens being a kid in that family. And I don't want that for anyone. Well, that got really deep.
Yeah,
Thanks.
but I love the depth, and thank you so much for making time for this and spreading your experience and your questions. And in the meantime, I'm going to keep on running around on the Swedish countryside with a sex geek t-shirt with the readaboutsex.com in the back.
Thanks again. It's so, and also me suggesting let's do a second podcast is just so that I get more time with you.
Yay!
And I get to look forward to it.
Shaking my boobs hearing you say that.
There you go.